All right, everybody, welcome back to the Daily Trading Recap. It is Tuesday, the 10th of August, 2021. Today's episode is brought to you by the new fragrance line Musk by Elon. Enter the code I smell great at checkout for 20% off of your next order. A little bit of housework before we get going today. SPY, of course, nothing really going on. Daily's looking okay. Is it ever not looking okay? That's the question. Some of the market internals on the day. NASDAQ, $180 billion volume. A little bit slow again. We're just 36 minutes after market close, however, but still pretty on the low side for the NASDAQ. NYSE, that a little bit on the low side as well, too. $217 billion total dollar volume, and OTC's hovering around the same, $2.3 billion total dollar volume. Another red day again, keeping up the streak of red days. I'm certainly firing on all cylinders on the red side, but unfortunately I took a pretty big win today, so kind of almost screwed it up at the end there. But totally great learning lessons all throughout. Lots of dip and rips opportunities, and going forward, at least for the short time, I think I'm going to go ahead and drop my quest for these morning dump patterns that I feel I've been identifying on the short side in the pre-market. I just don't feel, in the last week I saw nothing. This week already, in the two pretty much most prolific days that I felt I've seen them in the past, really just nothing again as well. Only one that I traded today that wasn't really that A+ of a setup in IMV. But again, too, just really not following along the same lines or parameters that I felt I identified that pattern to begin with. So I'm going to go ahead and reserve those day trades, reserve that shorting account to open myself up to the long side as well, too, on some tickers, some dip and rips that worked very, very well today in this market. So first trade on the day, IMV. Again, I went short on this one. What we look for is we want American biotechs in this morning dump pattern. We want a higher float. We want a news catalyst spike above 25% at least, maybe, just because I need to be looking to get 10% minimum out of that huge volatility to the downside if it pulls back immediately. So, of course, the higher the better. So this one today, too, they announced final top-line results from blah, 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 clinical trial in advanced recurrent ovarian cancer. Again, this is a Canadian biotech, still a biotech in itself. Larger float of 61 million, not insanely huge, but also not insanely small either to go totally quick and volatile against you. And then reported short interest of less than 1%. That's not really a factor on this one. So then, yeah, got short. I think I reserved 1,000 shares at this point. Got my first entry of 400 shares, I think was this first entry, of just trying to play anything to the downside here. I identified this point. Really, the first time I pulled this chart up was, of course, around this time frame, and I was going as quick as I can, almost to say, okay, I need to be short this thing. This thing could just die off quick in this pre-market here, especially after it's failed to break out on a new high a day. So got in with that first entry, just based totally on that thesis of all those factors lining up. The daily, pretty decent on this one, if I remember. Yeah, nice downtrend on the daily as well. Lots of overhead to try and shove this thing lower on the day. That one. So first entry, again, sizing in because I haven't seen a lot of these plays come out lately. I just don't feel confident in, or especially emotionally as well, too. I just have not been doing well in laying my entire position size on my first entry. And so being able to scale in, I feel, has helped me a lot better prepare for these types of plays and be in these types of plays as well. So first entry, getting it around here as I felt it was still just weak at this point, could break further. Watching it hard around this 2-2 level. Failed to break 2-2 multiple times. 3 to be precise. 1, 2, 3. 4, kind of, if you want to include this one as well, too, where I got another short position. So got more shares on that 2-2 failure, which I thought was going to be the end of it. Really wasn't. Tried again. Was hitting 2-2 for a while. You can see this volume coming in. If we close this off, this volume, too, was pretty crazy to watch. As we're getting more volume coming in, trying to push it beyond this 2-2, it was failing to push 2-2, and then ultimately falling back. It was turning red. Well, it actually didn't turn red, but looking pretty weak. Lots of sellers jumping in, pushing it down back to 217. I think this was like a 218 fill I was able to get here as it was on its way down. then quickly reversed past 2.2 and then pretty much immediately past that high of day, which is where I cut for that total one was a $77 loss, 6% loss in total from my average entries there. Nowhere near the end of the world. I could have totally seen myself looking at this as just, oh, woe is me, another loser, here we go, another red day, blah, 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 whatever. But I totally stuck to my monthly goal plan of, hey, having fun, learning from it, still being with it, and saying, hey, this trade is not over. It's still producing insane percentage move in volume. Today in total, it was $158 million volume, which isn't insane, of course. Isn't that insane. It is pretty insane to think about, to try and rationalize $158 million trading on this one day, but compared to everything else and of course, including this fade, factoring that into the dollar volume, I could see it's whatever. 150,000 trades though, which is pretty nice. Even for this exit though, this was a little bit of a fat finger exit. As it was pushing through this high a day risk level, there was a little bit of a voice inside me saying, ooh, this could be one of those that just like kind of perks a little bit above high of day and then just ultimately pulls right back down and does a perfect dump into the market open. So I kind of lucked out that I did fat finger it, but there was a big part of me that was saying, man, you could get a little degenerate on this one and try and hold it, because I could see the potential to the downside on this one. And of course it did. Later in the day, you had to hold through. There was no telling what it could have done before the morning bell. There was no telling of what it could have done if it stayed at these levels and continued to ramp even higher. All those types of possibilities were on the table. But of course, once again, after not having played this type of trade for a while and still just working my way through it and defining what I like to see out of it and how the trades continue to evolve themselves too, it was better to have stopped out on this and just refocus, realign myself with, hey, what's the chart producing now, than to try to be so degenerate on this one and say, oh, well, I was at 2.2 and now it's at 2. There's my 10%. And I was risking 3,000% in order to get that 10%, but that's fine. So degenerate, but it was there. It's whatever. It's gone in the past, and I'm not going to hold myself accountable to that type of setup on that one either way. But then was looking at this one, so was able to clear that out of my head, the short, not major loss in reality at all. It was a pretty high, as I look back on it now, it was a pretty high borrowing fee for how big of a float it was, which may have been another little bit of a red X on the check mark boxes for this trade, but I didn't really factor that in as much. But looking back, the different little key things that may have added up of, why is it not just ultimately breaking down immediately right now? It is a little bit higher of a borrowing fee from trade 0 to get this one. It's whatever. I wanted to be in it. I've been sitting on so many day trades, having not traded these short setups in a while. I just had to be in something at least, and that can get you sometimes, and that's what got me today. But learning lesson on that one. I was able to flip my mentality, say, hey, look to the long side in this one. This could be a nice dip and rip opportunity. So we immediately switched my chart over to the tick chart at market open. And then we were kind of developing a little bit of a base here quick within the first 5 minutes. And then it started to perk back above VWAP. It wasn't that huge of a sell-off for many of the longs in this pre-market. But then it was able to just kind of perk quick above VWAP. So this entire trade really was just a protection against if it wanted to go to the upside quickly, which was what I was looking for. I was looking for this, this move entirely. Hindsight, looking back now, of course, I can say, okay, this is a low float. It's not going to move that quickly. And even if it did decide to just ramp right to new high days immediately within these first 10 minutes of market open without having a huge dip, you have to be willing, in my mindset of what this dip and rip pattern is and how you're looking at this chart, you have to be willing in order to give up that move unless you're trying to play it from the pre-market, which is even more of a stupid or risk-reward setup because you do not know where this thing, how far it's going to dip, if it's even going to come back. That's even more of a riskier trade, just hoping on the probability that it does just start spiking right out of the gate to new high days. So I've got to be willing to give up that move and say, I'll pull up on the chart later on ZEV of what really should be the ideal entry at that point, and be willing to open yourself up and say, hey, I missed this move, but I still think there's a lot left more in the tank in the morning session at least. And that's the type of trade I'm looking for, because it didn't offer the type of typical dip and rip, pull back and then 945 area. Then we get the ramp back up to the upside, which was ZEV to begin with. Anyway, so then it did eventually end up putting in some more bases, not the cleanest or most beautiful technical level holds, or especially looking on this tick as well, not like the most pristine identification of seeing, oh, okay, there's a lot of bidders supporting it just below $2 here, identifying there. But the upside on that one certainly was there in the morning session. And then you can just see just how little was traded the rest of the day. It was all the morning session here. So from here to, look, oh my gosh, this is 2 hours. From here to here is 2 hours of market from the open. And then this is the entire rest of the day. That's pretty funny to see. So that was that one. In total, lost. In hindsight of this one again too, I say hindsight a lot, of course. But looking at this one, because it was a protection style of trade of saying, oh, I want to be in the move if it does happen, but I'm not really looking to it as the move itself. I maybe should have considered sizing down even more, but I took a $500 size position on that one, which should have been smaller. That really was, I was looking to be like $1,000 position size for what could have, should have, would have been this dip and rip opportunity. So because it was a protection one, looking back, I should have said, dial it back down, say, okay, I'm just throwing 20 shares. I'm throwing, 30, 40 shares at this one. $100 position size, say if it does end up going there, at least I'm a part of it along for the ride, get that emotional experience of it, rather than trying to say, oh, this kind of has to happen because it's the bigger position size. I'm taking up a lot of my cash account size. I kind of forced myself into a bad situation with that one. It didn't affect my trading at all. Looking at the P&L or any of that, I don't look at the P&L on any of these trades. But of course, should have protected my risk a little bit better. That was IMV. I think that's all I wanted to talk about that one. And it was during my short entry, of course, as I look back now, it was still a rising VWAP. It wasn't a decreasing VWAP. I'm shorting into the upside still. Again, a stupid entry on that one, which also factors into why I'm kind of cutting off the morning dump trades at this point, because nothing's really been popping for those. ZEV. Dollar volume today in total on this one, 1.5 billion. Absolutely ludicrous. And still testing new high days in the after hours here. That's awesome. This is a American, it says farm and heavy construction machinery as the industry on scans here. But of course the company bio is Lightning E-Motors, designs, manufactures, and sells electric vehicles. So it's hitting that EV mark. EV news today as well of, they just announced second quarter earnings. Oh, it will release its second quarter earnings on the 16th. So this may be a little bit of speculation before that. Today's morning news, though, was they reached a multi-year agreement for up to $850 million in zero-emission bus technology, blah, 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 with another company. Pretty decent news. This spike is 50%, 6 to 9, and then reaching 6 to 12. Yeah, over 100% in the market hours today, especially. Did not want to trade this one as a short, 100%. This is not what I look for as a short setup with that continuing rising VWAP. That's what I should have saw on IMV. But totally looking at this one for the dip and rip. But again, here I set myself up for, and also looked at this one through the tick chart, the tick volume chart. This was the highest trader on the day as well, too. 600,000 trades on the day for this one. That's pretty awesome. I think EVs could be coming back around. Let's do that. Okay. Going into market open, I was so excited and ready for these dip and rip setups, clearing out my mental space from that short, just ready to, take what the market was giving, but also kept in the frame of mind to say, I don't want to be chasing the spike if it goes right away in the morning, which I got faked out a little bit by IMV, but that I also knew with certainty that, okay, I'm just kind of protecting myself a little bit if it just does want to go immediately right now, knowing that it could just dump back lower to a new low of day in the market hours at least after that entry. But my position size didn't reflect that. We already talked about it. Whatever. I told myself the same thing again on ZEV as it was putting in a little bit of higher price action here. Holding well. Back to the 1 minute chart. Look at the daily on this one too. Again, kind of downtrodden. It hits a few of the marks that I look for as a morning dump short with this overhead resistance. The float was obviously minuscule, 2.13 million float. So that was a huge factor against it. But where was I going? So I wasn't trying to chase the morning spike. That's not what I want to do. That's totally amateur. I've done that so many times, and it's time I need to learn my lesson to not do that. But I did it anyway on this one again. In the same kind of realm of mentality of, okay, it's moving to the upside. It could just explode on up from here. Coming from the 2020 market, we've seen those do that immediately, just continue to go, and that was the only chance to get on the bus ride at that point for the day on that ticker. So kind of just protecting myself, I chased definitely at this point as it was coming on, 987. I think I got, and lucked out that it still decided to keep going, which made me a little bit more confident. And then as we're coming up to this high day level here, that it failed to break that 10.5 kind of round number, $half area. I'm thinking, okay, we could just ramp even harder past that. So I did protect myself a little bit on the position size initially, thinking, okay, I'm only going to take half of what I thought I wanted to take initially. So this was like a $500 position, again, similar to IMV, but with more upside potential, obviously. But then sizing into a full size of like $1,000 at this point, when the trade wasn't confirmed, was obviously not prudent. So that one ended up tanking super hard. All these stops and algos getting hit, just overhead of a wave, a waterfall of selling coming in to push that thing down. Didn't crack that low a day. We still held and kind of perfectly, I think you could see this red candle here too. The poor guy, whoever got stopped out, or girl, risking that low a day there. He probably got so screwed out. So I ended up cutting here. Really, I really shouldn't have even have cut. I was just like, oh, that's a lot of red. It could go even more. I need to get out now. But it really didn't break any levels. So I could have held on to that position, and I, again, following along the monthly goal, having fun, being loose and being free to say, okay, this trade isn't over. It's holding well. It didn't crack that low a day. I get back in with another 50 shares for a second attempt, still chopping around, not breaking down. An awesome risk reward potential from here, because if it decides to just dump and keep going, similar to what IMV did out of the gate. IMV, come on. If it decided to just dump and keep going, then that's such a small, like anywhere on these points here, that's such a small risk for what is a huge reward to the upside that we absolutely nailed. One of my best trades in a long time. This was 20% that I nailed it for on only 50 shares, so less than a $500 position size trade. But awesome to be a part of. And I think this was really the best entry point here because of that risk reward. You could have certainly got it as it was hovering back above VWAP again. It's a little bit sketchy because it was chopping around and you weren't that confident. These hard pulls back down testing VWAP, you could tell that there were some algos at that point of VWAP, but the trend was still upward. It was putting in higher lows this whole time and just slowly grinding its way back up. And meanwhile, this whole time, while it's pushing slowly higher and higher like this roller coaster, I could just foresee those 2020 markets, even early 2021, of how sometimes these tickers would do this type of slow movement to the upside, then all of a sudden out of nowhere just bam, hammer you with the selling, just like IMV did. And the same thing it did on this one here. Just hit you with the force of 1,000 waterfalls. And I was just kind of waiting for it and preparing it. And I had the stops in, of course. Putting stops in on this type of ticker is zero problem whatsoever. With the dollar volume and the amount of trades, nobody cares about my measly 50 share stop. So definitely put it in initially under this low a day, and then I accordingly would adjust it as we broke out to a new high, held this 10.5, 10.6 area. As we're continuing to push, I was adjusting. This was a pretty quick move as well to the upside. So really was preparing myself to say, okay, I could, should, would take off at 10%, half of my position. But then I also remember too, okay, we're kind of in a breakout situation, at least intraday, not on the daily, of course. So I really shouldn't be limiting what this new trend is, because this is a new trend. So there's no hard technical levels, like trying to compare it to anything on this day. No real volume to say that there's hard technical levels at any of these areas. This is a new trend, and the amount of volume coming in as well too. Shorts are getting so squeezed to the upside that the only thing they have to risk off of is these whole round numbers. So at this point I'm saying, okay, looking for like 11.5 at least, or trying somewhere around here, and then we get a halt. We get 11.4, 11.17. It just keeps spiking, going, and I'm kind of filling around with this active trader window thinking, okay, I should take off half of my position at least at some point, and then it starts printing 1117. All of a sudden, bid and ask start to look like they're about to halt, and I'm like, awesome, this is exactly what I want to do. I want to be liquidating into a halt, because halts have not been gapping up awesomely recently. So I was surprised how quickly I was able to actually get filled on this halt as well too. I've never done that before, and I kind of like it, and I think I'll apply that in the future as well too. If I'm long to the upside and it's starting to halt, hey, take some size off. Because another thing that you don't really think about either too is, okay, yes, it's halting with momentum to the upside as you're long, but nobody really factors in the mental game that also goes on behind that, where as you're sitting there, you're thinking, okay, sweet, we're halting to the upside. And then you have to sit there for like 5 minutes thinking, man, what if it gaps down? And then like randomly on my scans too, it'll show like the level 2 and bid ask just moving around, declining, moving up, whatever. It's probably not even factual or real, but then that starts to play the mental games as well. And that's just another factor too that I don't really ever think about, trying to hold up full position size into a halt. Whereas, okay, now I'm able to take off half of my position, locking in awesome profits at beyond 10% here. And then I can come out of the halt saying, oh, okay, it's sold off quick, rose a little bit, sold off again, and we're in a little bit of a downtrend. This is just a new trend that's developed here, this little channel to the downside. But I can, with full confidence and clarity, say, this is a terrible line, with full confidence and clarity, because I've already taken off into the halt, I can just sit back and relax and watch the action go. I mean, I'm setting my stops here. I still have my stop at like this 10.4 area, that previous high of day, just under that, because to say I am not going to cut this thing short if it wants to keep ramping higher. And it did not. It held through awesomely. So as we come back above here, we put in a new trend. We start pushing new highs. I adjust my risk to this like 10.8 area. I'm continually moving it up and up, not insanely with each ticket's going up, not insanely moving the stop along with it. I might have to look into trailing stops. That might be an interesting thing. Not right now. But then I said, as we're moving higher, okay, I'm saying, okay, I'm looking at $12 whole dollar round area as the last exit point for me. Then we start pushing hard. We get to like 11.93. I'm thinking, oh, we just need a little bit more. And then it pushed to 12 quick and then rejected back under super quick again. And I'm thinking, okay, just give me one more opportunity. And then I was able to get like 11.87 or something. Kind of terrible looking back at it now, but that was really what I was looking for. And man, I sold. That was a perfect guesstimate of what would have been the high of day on this one, in the pre-market at least, or in morning session at least, for what this dip and rip move was. Awesome trade. I've not been a part of a dip and rip like that in a long time, and I certainly want to start hammering these more with bigger sizes in the future, in the near future, if they want to start moving that way as well. Afternoon session on this one, again, was holding levels well-ish. It's so choppy, and you can say this is a VWAP hold, but you got to hold through all of this and it's dumping and blah, blah, blah. And then holding here, this could have been a nice entry to the upside on that one. But then you got to suffer through this massive down candle with volume there. And then all of a sudden it says, whoop, no, we're going to the upside on that one. Just all over the place. And then I also wanted to mention too, I didn't bring in, looking at this huge sell-off candle in the pre-market. That was interesting to see as it was testing this high a day a little bit. And then all of a sudden it said, nope, we're selling. So that was throwing a wrench into the mix a little bit from the get-go with everybody as well too. Interesting stock, awesome dollar volume, awesome trade on this one. I don't really feel confident in trying to play these to the downside as of yet. Of course, as I got screwed over on the KXIN yesterday or last Friday. Yeah, it's just not my taste. There's no real telling if it does want to pull back all the way to VWAP or even lower. I don't really feel I have any hard data on those ones as of yet. But awesome trade, awesome setup. It's definitely on watch for tomorrow too if it's holding this well. Next one, KXIN. Didn't really have anything on this one. Of course, this was the recent runner. Still up from a news push 2 trading days ago. So this was last week, Friday, that it held these levels here, pushed even higher into the close, and then over the weekend sold off a little bit, had a like nothingness day. So you could have kind of considered this one a 3rd day play, like that Dan Irish type of play. But there was also a news catalyst combined with this one, so it altered the trade setup in my mind at this point, and it was early in the morning as well too, 7 Eastern time. So the downtrend was there on this one. Shoulda, coulda, woulda gotten short. I was telling myself, man, this one could just dump. If I was getting the entry around 3.3, I could see it going to 3 at some point. And of course it did. You know, shoulda, coulda, woulda again. Not really insane, anything on that one. Chinese sketchy company. Don't really want any part of it. AHPI, the Bryce Tui ticker. Oh my gosh. Had this one on the watch list. And then I turn around or pull it up once again in the pre-market, and it's just already up for some reason. There's no news catalyst in the morning, nothing to accelerate price action, but here we are. We're pushing insane percentage moves and dollar volume today, 439 million, which is pretty nice, 160,000 trades. Thrown off once again of, man, how do you trade this now that it's just spiking so hard into the morning bell? So then we get this thing, again, it's just so choppy and hard to read. You have to play this one over the longer term time frame of what you're looking at, be able to take on a wider risk level. But the morning spike was there in effect for show. But tried again, didn't really have the strength to just continue pushing higher, was continually just like chugga, 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 choo-choo, and then down the hill, off the backside. I don't really see any plays on this for me. It could be a short coming tomorrow. The close pretty weak anyway here. I don't know who would be holding this long. That would be panicking out or just bleeding still tomorrow, but could be a trade. Interesting ticker to watch, especially how much Bryce Tui has been nailing that one. FULC I wanted to mention as well too, just for the insane percentage moves and dollar volumes it was pushing today. $1.7 billion volume today, 600,000 trades. Is that more than ZEV? ZEV had 660,000 trades. This one had 630,000 trades. So, But again, this type of pre-market, rising, never really breaking VWAP, hovering around into the morning bell. A little bit of a sell-off here. Fundamentals on this one also mention 17 million float. It's an American biotech. Reported short interest of 4%. News catalyst was they announced positive interim results from phase 1 healthy adult, blah, 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 blah. So these are the types of tickers that we used to look at for the morning dumps that just to fade off either directly in the pre-market or fade off hard all day as just a nothingness type of play. But these are the ones that are moving now. So it's not that they're not doing what they're supposed to be, or not doing what they're supposed to be doing, like the market's supposed to do anything. But they're just not even given the opportunity. They don't even really look the same as what I felt they were or what I was charting. So I think there's just something to take note of. It's funny too, they actually, 1624, half an hour ago, they announced public offering of common stock, 15 million, $100 million of shares in their stock. That's funny. obvious, but it hasn't died off. That is funny. This could be a watch if it doesn't just immediately start tanking off the table. 1624, that's around here. You can see it tried to tank, but now it's still holding, so it's definitely going to be on the long for tomorrow if it does not decide to just dump. A failed offering dump to me is a definite bullish signal. So I could be even looking at this one in the after hours here. I'll have to keep a watch on this one. Just pure spike. You could call this a cup and handle, dip and rip. Nice basing around here, but again, choppiness as it's breaking these bottom technical levels. Not the most pure or beautiful basing, but to the upside. Getting an entry here, getting an entry here. Who's to say that it doesn't just dump back down underneath or just chop around, mess around the whole day. Awesome upside. A little bit of a sell-off to the downside. Never touched VWAP once again the rest of the market hours after it reclaimed hard in the morning session here. Just wanted to mention that one. WORX and BTBT. WORX, I came in with the mentality of like a first red day short, even though it really wasn't. This would be considered more the first red day short today going into tomorrow, but this was just such a massive sell-off that I didn't want to take a position of it, obviously, because of this massive sell-off. I wasn't expecting it for it to go hard to the downside, of course, even though it did go hard to the downside. The more optimal trade on this one I could have seen if it wanted to hold around the 4-5 area, 4-6 this is here. Kind of chop around, maybe get some little perks in the after hours, but then open this pre-market even weaker, and then you get all of these longs still holding from Monday's trading day, just looking to dump and panic and sell off here. That's where you get some nice volatility and quick pushes, at least to the downside on that one for WORX. So did what I thought it was going to do, but didn't take a position because of what it did yesterday. But BTBT certainly did. This was the first red day short. Coming in from the first red day, obviously this is more pristine or well-defined, a textbook first red day, as it's opening lower than the previous day's close, or closing lower than the previous day's close. And then coming into today, not a lot of volume to increase it. You get a little bit of a perk here, a little bit of a motion scare to 17 as it breaks, but then ultimately just wow. I think number 7 nailed this one to a T on the downside. Pretty nice chart for BTBT. Again, this one is a Bitcoin sector, obviously, but doesn't really follow Bitcoin that well. Bitcoin's still hovering around like 45K at this point in time, but it's not like dumping, so this one really didn't have a reason to dump. It's just become more of a parabolic penny stock runner at this point to try and trade anything like that. And then to finish it up, Hood, the memer. To start it off, shares per trade today, we're now under an average of 100 shares per trade for Hood, which I think is the first time that's happened since its IPO. I could be so wrong. Maybe on this day it was lower than that. But that's just under like $6,000 per trade, $6,000 size per trade. So I had this one on the corner of my screen and kind of just like saw it expand for some reason out of the corner of my eye. I was like, whoa. And that was right around this point. And then I was like, okay, that was a little nice sell. Not the most insane sell-off. That's like $1, right? 57.5, just under 56.5. And then a few minutes later, I look again, and it's just continuing to expand with these red candles. I'm like, whoa, it's still going. So just hard sell-off on that one today. I don't see any news coming out. I didn't even look at Wall Street Bets or any FinTwit if anything's happening with it, but it was a down day today. Sellers were in control from the morning session on that one. That's all I had today in total. $100 down day, 96, I think in total after fees and stuff on the IMV loss. Really, really glad. Back on ZEV, this one, so initially this first trade here was a $68 loss in itself for this one, which is kind of decent for the size I took on it, only a 6% loss from where I had to cut it. But coming back with a $500 position size and a 20% trade, that was able to recover $95 on just this trade alone. That was pretty awesome. So those kind of nullified each other, and the only thing I was really down was the IMV short as my total P&L on the day. Awesome learning lessons, especially emotionally as well too. I think this monthly goal once again is just doing wonders. Not so much for P&L right now, but again, I don't really care the most about P&L right now. It's just about learning the trade setups, when to be in, when to not be in, when to size up, when to not size up. In reality, I shouldn't really even think or care about sizing up right now in these summer months, but I gotta just hit it hard. I'm alive, I'm breathing. Not YOLO, but kind of YOLO to an extent of what we should be doing, and that's my mentality. I thank you guys for watching it. If you guys made it this far into the video, please click the like button and please subscribe. I sincerely thank you guys for watching this far on a 35-minute video. You guys are truly awesome. I appreciate you. I will see you guys tomorrow.